as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Muka Stalin has two top priorities on his list. One is to put a lid on the surging COVID cases in the state and, of course, to put the economy back on track. Several political analysts have said that his new cabinet is a very, very judicious mix. There are old-timers who bring gravitas to the table and first-time ministers who do not carry any baggage and look at things from a very, very fresh perspective. If there is one man on whom all eyes are set, it is the finance minister in the Tamil Nadu government, Dr. Palanivel Thiagarajan, also known as PTR. And amongst many reasons, two being that he has excellent academic qualifications. He studied in New York and also the prestigious MIT and has a long professional career with Lehman Brothers and Stanchart in Singapore. We are delighted to be joined by Dr. Palanivel Thiagarajan on India Ahead today. Vanakkam, Dr. Thiagarajan, how are you today?
Vanakkam, I'm well. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for asking. Dr. Thiagarajan, the first question is obviously about COVID. You know, I've been speaking to several doctors. I'm sure you've read and you're somebody who's always dealt with numbers. Do you think the second wave is basically a result of us having misread the data and then we are in such a bind right now?
Yeah, I would say, it's more than that. My chief minister has designated different ministers to go and be in charge of countermeasures in the worst affected districts. So I'm actually in Madurai for the last 2-3 days, ever since the day of the swearing in and the election of the speaker. And we have meetings multiple times a day. We have improved the setup quite a bit. We have a war room. We are monitoring the data. I'm with my own guys because I think that the government has some strengths and some weaknesses. But with my own team, I'm setting the new standards for design and reporting and validation and cross-verification. Because I go back to your point, it's not even a question of we misread the data. I think in a lot of cases, the data was basically faked. The data was not adequately accurate. In Tamil Nadu, for example, I have actually gone to court as an opposition MLA saying that there should be reconciliation and there's a gap between the city numbers, the district numbers and the state numbers. And many, many deaths are being reported in the crematoriums, whereas the government is showing very few deaths. Now, some of that persists. Just yesterday, I had a series of review meetings from morning till evening, and I found that the data reported by the government at the state level was still huge gap between that and the crematorium. So, this time I made a second request and I said I would not like to take action against anybody, but I urge you to validate the data, because in the past when I was an opposition MLA, you could hide. Now I am in the government. I have access to anything I ask for, and I'm not about to let it go. Now I'll say one more thing. I'll say that the lack of data was only the kind of half of it. The lack of planning, the lack of forethought, the lack of insurance policy in terms of strategy or backup oxygen has been really problematic. And because the last time we had the first wave, we were quite badly off and the rest of India was not. Now the rest of India is much worse than us. So the central government has chosen to interfere, I would say, they say coordinate, I call it interfere, in the purchase and supply of medicines, of oxygen, and so forth. So the same government that says each go and do your own bidding for vaccines says that all oxygen is regulated by them, all interstate transfers are regulated by them, all allocation of drugs is regulated by them. So we have this dichotomy. So I'd be hard pressed to put it to one cause, but surely the lack of data is a huge problem. The lack of planning and administration and foresight is another huge problem, and we're paying the consequences for that.
Yeah, so PTR, I'm going to only speak about policy paralysis. I'm not going to speak about politics because I think it's not proper to do that, considering that a lot of people are dying. Even as we speak, we're getting a lot of report from Tamil Nadu, Dharmapuri. We had Mr. Senthil Kumar, on my show day before. He said, there are 0 deaths reported, but look at the crematoriums and burial grounds in Dharmapuri. There are lots of people who are dead. There is a remdesivir kind of a crisis which is there in Chennai. The government protocol protocol says there is no need for it unless it's mandatory. But then, people are queuing up at private hospitals. There is a lack of ICU beds. Do you think that is a cascading? And how much time do you think your government will take to fix these problems? Because every day is precious, PTR.
Yeah, I think I first resent the implication that I was talking politics, that you need to correct me. I'm the one who told you that the data is still bad in my government. So I completely resent that you're telling me that I'm talking politics, right? I mean, on what basis do you accuse me of talking politics?
PTR, PTR, I said I don't want to talk about politics. I want to talk about
why would you say that?
paralysis.
I'm not talking politics in the first place. I'm talking about people's lives.
So I said, how long will you take to correct this? Because you do have a plan.
The situation is very bad. The biggest weakness we have is a lack of oxygen. Because the government has basically centralized the oxygen supply, we have lost 20 metric tons of oxygen supply coming from neighboring states. And so we have had to try and source this either by airlift from places like West Bengal, from Orissa, from overseas, concentrators, cylinders. We are doing everything we can. The biggest shortage we have now is oxygen. And that's because existing supply contracts were disrupted and barred. So there's no oxygen traveling across borders now. For example, Madurai, many of the hospitals used to get their supply from Bellary or from Kerala. All those have been cut off. So we have no choice. So at this point, the biggest weakness we have is lack of oxygen. We have enough beds. Compared to most states, we have enough infrastructure. We are okay on the drugs. I'm not saying that we're happy. We had a 2 lakh purchase order that the government took over and only allocates us some 6,000 a day. So in that sense, we are less than thrilled with the situation, but that's not our biggest weakness, because as you know, with these drugs, different drugs give different effects at different parts of the treatment cycle. And though the public seems to think there's such a thing as a silver bullet, our best data is that there isn't. The real question is how quickly you catch it and how much you're able to help the body go through the breathing trouble period by supplying oxygen and letting the lungs recover if it progresses to that stage. At this point, we still think that somewhere around 80% of the infected cases are showing no symptoms, other than mild symptoms and tests, and only about 10 to 15% of the cases are needing hospitalization. But we have a problem. Logistically, whoever gets to the hospital first wants to get the bed, irrespective of whether they need hospitalization or not. So we're increasing the triaging model. We're making it more distributed. We're trying to put an IT platform underneath to monitor all of this. The war rooms have staffed up greatly in the last 5 days. Last night, you may have seen on TV that the Chief Minister himself went on an unannounced visit to the Chennai war room at about 11 p.m. To validate whether it was working, took a call from somebody who called in, made arrangements for them to get admission in the hospital. So, this has to be done on a war footing. I again repeat, the biggest weakness is oxygen, then of drugs, and then of vaccination, the vaccines for vaccination. We are not that badly off in beds. We can recreate those as quickly as we need, or we can create extra ones as quickly as we need. All the colleges are closed, all the hotels are closed. We can easily create bed capacity. We are focused on these 3 supplies.
Absolutely, PTR. And talking about Muka Stalin, it is very obvious that he's hit the ground running, all the promises, most of the promises that he made and, dovetailed into the situation that Tamil Nadu is today, for instance, 4,000 rupees, for ration card holders, free bus rides for women, setting up hospitals, sprucing up all these hospitals, everything, he is doing it at a war footing, like you said, PTR. But, the last time Mr. O. Pannirselvam presented the budget, let's not say there was a deficit, there was a huge crater. So I'm asking you as Finance Minister, how do you plan to, take forward steps? Because it is indeed a very, very challenging time for you and your government, PTR.
Yeah, I think, as I've said before, the basic problem of the last few years was that there was no political philosophy dictated by one person at the top. As long as Ms. Jayalalitha was there, she set the tone and everybody followed. Any political leader is like that. The leader sets the tone and the rest of us follow that. In the last few years, there was more of a cartel, and there was no real specific leader, and therefore there was no tone. In this case, I'm very clear, right? In the scale of things that I've dealt with in my life, this is by far the most responsible, because it is for a state of 80 million people, but neither in complexity nor in scale of actual numbers is it anywhere near the things that I have dealt with as a finance professional at a global level in my career? So I only take direction from my leader. Until then, I don't go left or right. But once he gives me the direction, then executing it is not, for me, not that complex a task. I'm not saying we can fix this in 1 year, but I've given detailed interviews in other places where I say my first issue is shoring up liquidity and making sure the model for liquidity works fine. Second is kind of fixing this year's amended budget, which we'll have to present sometime in the next few months. And then more important than that to me is laying out the economic philosophy of our leader, the chief minister's 5-year tenure. He tells me the political philosophy and the relative value of different aspects of our social justice model. My job is to craft an economic philosophy and an economic strategy that matches the direction he tells me to go in. And so I'm quite comfortable that I can do that. And I'm very, very comfortable that I'm certainly no worse off than my predecessor in terms of being able to handle the economy and the budget and the balance sheet of the state.
All right. PTR, let's now look at Tamil Nadu in the historical perspective. Always considered to be a very developed state, but somehow over the past few years, it has hurtled down the abyss. Also, I think moved away from what is very essential for, Dravidian philosophy, which is Swayamaryada, self-respect, and also equity in society, considering ours is a very integrated society. Do you think the center has been, what's your opinion? It's a question for you, has been playing big daddy, the GST issue, for instance, and making a lot of decisions for Tamil Nadu? Do you think the center-state relations in this particular perspective and prism needs to be corrected, PTR?
Yeah, again, I say, independent of politics, I say that center-state relations are at a low that haven't been seen in decades. And, you may have seen, if not, I'm happy to send you, somebody got an excerpt of Prime Minister Modi's statements and philosophy and kind of positions when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. And you can see that he was against GST. He was against the center kind of getting into the state's business of dictating grants and cesses and so forth. He was very, very clear that the state's rights were crucial to development and progress, and that those should be honored. Now he has changed his position after going to Delhi, but the facts on the ground have not changed. The complexity and scale of India suggests that even within Tamil Nadu, for example, I've made the point, one of the reasons Kerala does better at us in some things, better than us at some things, is that it has a more devolved administrative model. The local bodies down to the villages and the towns and the municipalities are much more empowered in real work and real budget compared to even Tamil Nadu. But, the notion of one nation, one X, and one nation, one GST, and one nation, one kind of policy and education on labor, on this thing, is a fundamentally false notion. It's a fallacy because it's not implementable. It's not executable. And we are seeing the consequences of that where, in the depth of crisis, the center has pretty much told every state, you're on your own. We will kind of regulate oxygen and drugs. And other than that, you're on your own. Go for it. So I think that's the sad state of today. And I'm not by any means the outlier. I'm not by any means the cheerleader or the ringleader. As a state, as Tamil Nadu. Many states have made this point many times before, and I endorse the perspective.
Right. The next question, which, we got a lot of queries when I announced that I'm going to be speaking with you. A lot of people from Tamil Nadu asked me that, PTR is a devotee of Meenakshi Amman in Madurai. You are from Madurai, which is a beautiful, beautiful temple, of course. But then your party, if you look at it, is more rationalist. And they wanted to know, and what I read about you is that, yes, you're a devotee. You go there. If somebody puts kungumam, which is vermilion on your forehead, you accept it with a lot of humility. But would you like to explain this, what many people see as a dichotomy, PTR?
Yeah, I think if you start with the wrong assumption, then everything looks like a dichotomy, right? So I think the notion of rationalism as we talk about it is not the same as anti-Hindu or anti-religion or kind of, what do you say, or pro-atheism. I think, rather than put my words, let me give you the words of Perarangir Anna, the founder of the DMK and an intellectual. He said, while I am against what I consider Mooda Nambike or irrational belief, and therefore I am a rationalist. For example, I do not believe that a woman should jump into the funeral pyre of her husband just because he happens to pass before her. So if that makes me a rationalist, then I am a rationalist. But at the same time, I am fully aware that those who have faith in God are actually good for society. To the extent that a person's faith in God makes them want to be a better human being because they are afraid that God will punish them if they do the wrong thing, or they believe God will reward them if they do the right thing, and because they see other followers, at least of their own religion, if not all humanity, as also the children of God, and therefore they want to do the right thing, and they want to do the right thing and shower love and affection on their fellow human beings. In that sense, I heartily endorse religion, and I endorse those with beliefs, and I believe it makes the world a better place if people have true faith in God, true faith in God. So I don't think that there is any dichotomy. I mean, this was the founder of the DMK back in the 1950s. My father was in the DMK, was a devout follower, was a MLA multiple times, MLC speaker, minister, chairman of the state cooperative society, and so forth. I've had a pretty good career. Many other people have. So I think that it's a false dichotomy. I think the Hindutva forces have been particularly successful in spinning this myth. And I get asked about it maybe, every interview I go to, and I give the same answer every interview I go to.
Right. Talking about God and Godmen, very strong words, in a recent interview that was used by you for Jaggi Vasudev, and in the context of HRNCE, where he has been recommending for the longest time that temples should be given to those who are the real bhaktas. And you, PTR, I read your interview, you've used a word like charlatan, calling him out very, very strongly. Would you like to elaborate, and not really on the person if you don't want to, but on the overall topic of HRNCE?
Look, I'll separate the two things, right? I mean, I don't believe that a man of God, a true spiritualist, a true, a conduit of God, is one who makes money and charges 50,000 and 5 lakhs and 5,000, and who prints ATG ticket receipts for admission, and who, looks for every cause possible to raise money. That's just me. My perception is true men of God don't behave that way. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my perception. I'm 55 years old. I've seen a lot of the world. It's not likely to change. So in my perception, he is, of course, a man who profits from the leveraging of God, the building of statues in forest lands and so forth. So I call him a charlatan. And you know what, those who understand English know what the word charlatan means. It's not abuse, it's just an adjective that has a very clear meaning. For those who don't, I would request that they go look it up. So leave that aside. That's a different issue. The separate issue I have is, which I'm going to ask you, if the temple should be given to bhaktas, never mind who built it, never mind who's got the right to it, never mind democracy, whether the people are represented by the government, never mind all of that stuff. Never mind that we say if everything that's wrong. I agree that the temple, the department is full of corruption. So is the health department. So is the education department. So is the water board. So is the transportation department. Should I privatize everything? Should I shut down the corporation schools? So I think some of it is just illogical. You say something wrong, I agree. I mean, I'm a member of the PSC for the last 5 years. I'm a consultant. I'm a quant guy. I can point out things that are wrong. And anybody who wants to step forward and say that, here, let me help you fix it, I'm the first guy to take it. Right? But if you just want to say it's bad, so I take it away, I don't think that. But leave all that aside. Leave the logic of it, leave the value system of it, leave the rights of it. I have a simple question to ask you. If it should be given to bhaktas, which bhaktas? I believe, for example, that you are a fan of the Meenakshi Amman temple, and you are a believer in God and a believer in Meenakshi Amman. You are sitting in Delhi. Should you be eligible to be one of the people who takes control of Meenakshi Amman temple, just out of curiosity?
There is obviously a process has to be put in place. You just can't go and label somebody as more of a bhakta and somebody as less of
So
a
my
bhakta.
question,
We
then
could all
comes
be
the
believing-
immediate question. Why is the state in the business of deciding who is a good bhakta and who's not? On what basis will the state decide who is a qualifying or qualified bhakta and who is not?
Right.
So
Seems-
I think it's just like,
seems like a-
you know, it's
yeah.
ab initio, it is a strange notion of bhakta, right? I mean, though the interview came out in the Hindu today, it was not a recent interview. It was an interview given in conjunction with some other things, and the Hindu chose to split and print it as two different interviews. And, you know, it is what it is. I'm not taking it back, but I'm just saying, it's not like this is my day job, right? I gave an interview a while back, it got cut and put today. I don't take back
Right.
anything, but there are fundamental questions in it that say, you tell me if I'm going to take it out and privatize it, how should I privatize it? Let somebody come back with real answers. Let somebody come back with a model.
I'm sure that Mr. Shekhar Babu will do due diligence and do what it takes to kind of correct this, you know, this entire perception. And I'm sure your government will also cooperate with it. But PTR, you do have a very, very challenging task in front of you. These are very, very dangerous times for the country. And, you know, you have to really hit the ground running. And, you know, all the best from India Ahead for your new innings. And I'm sure that, you know, we wish you all the best. And I'm sure you will do what it takes to put Tamil Nadu back on track. PTR, thank you so much for speaking with India Ahead. Thank you.